Soul family, welcome to Modern Mystic Messages. I'm Teresa. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm so happy that you're here. I was sitting down to do my work for the day for the family here, and before I did, as I was preparing to talk about something completely different, I got another divine detour. It happens. Like I say, at this point, I should expect it. I just work here. When the memo come from upstairs that it is what it is, we're going in a different direction. And I'll explain what that's about in a minute. But before I do, there's two things that I wanted to mention today that were on my mind as well. First and foremost, again, thank you so much to all the new subscribers. That's one of the reasons I refer to you all as soul family. I set such an intention to draw in like minded, cooperative people that were eager to learn and grow on a similar path as myself and all that. So I didn't know where they were going to come from, but I knew the way my algorithm has worked for me, and I've seen Spirit's hand in it firsthand. I promise you, my algorithm on YouTube is 100% different than anybody else's I know, even my spiritual mentor. I mean, he puts me on to some things, but I put him on to equally as much sometimes. And so I know my algorithm is different, and I know that that wasn't just a fluke. So, first and foremost, if you're on this path and you're here on this channel, so I know you're seeking and you're very interested and you're learning and expanding. One of the things that I'd love to suggest, if you're able, is YouTube Premium. And I promise you, this channel ain't even big enough for me to be paid to say that. But please consider getting the premium. And if you're like me, I don't watch any secular television really. Most of what I get comes off of YouTube. I call it University of YouTube. But if you are like I was and got pimple popping videos and puppy videos and rump shaker videos or whatever else that has been a part of your past viewing, that trains your algorithm in a certain way. If you really want to use YouTube as University of YouTube to maximize your spiritual growth, I strongly suggest to you to start another channel. Subscribe to this one even if you start on the new one. But if you have a very diverse set of things that you watch on there, start another channel. They're free. Get premium on the channel that you want to use for your spiritual learning. And I'm going to tell you why that one. Because as you begin to train that algorithm, not having the distraction of them trying to guess at things to sell you through the commercials will be very beneficial in your meditation tracks, your affirmations, your documentaries, your audio books that you're listening to. It is so worthwhile to not have the commercial interference, in my opinion, for anybody that's really trying to get on, like, take their spiritual education to another level. Is so worth an 1999 18.99 or whatever a month, if you can do that. Now if you can't, I understand. My money got tight recently and I suspended my premium membership, and that was when it really reminded me how valuable it was. Now, like I say, that has been huge for me because it has allowed my algorithm to be purely trained towards how spirit is leading it and my spiritual interest without the commercial stuff. Like I said, the algorithm is trying to guess what you're interested in. So you may be watching something on spirituality, and the closest thing that they match to it might be some kind of religious organization that completely flies in the face of what you want. Not saying that you can't keep hitting skip, but if you're trying to listen to an audio book or work on a meditation or get a concept down, do you really want to continue having that? Not really. It's so worth it if you can to do that. And I'm telling you, it'll take your exploration to another place. Now, that said, like I said, thank you to the new subscribers. We're almost at 400 now. I'm so excited about that. Um, yeah, thank you. Like, seriously, thank you. And that said, I'm not going to get on here and try to push people to share the channel and all of that. However, I will say if you do like the content and want to help, if you are so inclined and you know somebody can genuinely benefit from it, if you do decide to share, much appreciated. Um, I'm not doing this for the algorithm. However, I am aware that reaching certain milestones in the channel allows me it unlocks certain things within YouTube that will ultimately allow me to concentrate more on special research projects, to devote more time to the information and the kind of content that you all want. So it does kind of work in that way to benefit. Also, this has nothing to do with any of that, but I did want to address this, and I honestly, it was a viewer that made a comment to me, and I can't even remember the viewer's name, but I will say the thing that stuck out because she mentioned to me was an Indian lady but a Christian, and was busy trying to lecture me on how I can't wear bindi. You know, Christians can't do that. Please do not misunderstand. And I don't if this offends somebody and costs me a few viewers, so be it. But I think we should be able to be transparent here and respectful. I'm in no way, shape, form, or fashion telling anybody that I'm a Christian any longer. I was born within the Christian religion. That was what I was raised to. I've been baptized in two sects of Christianity, but I am no longer Christian, and I rescinded my dedications and baptisms because I came to learn and understand that I had dedicated my life to a dragon, that the Bible, the God of the Bible, is not what we were taught to believe and understand. And once I understood that, I no longer rep with that. And I had to go the way I dress, and I know it looks a little different. I mean, today I'm casual with just a tank dress on and a hoodie, but normally when Spirit moved me to start dressing differently, I love salwar kameez, I love kaftans, and I cover my head with a turban. I protect my third eye with a bindi. And I do that very intentionally. And I find it interesting. It's always the Christians. It's always the Christians. I see it in the comments everywhere I go that are in the comments telling other people about what they can't do. And she was informing me that wearing a bindi is idolatry. Says the lady that worships and that bends her knee and pays her tithe and follows in the temple of an organization that uses the image of their slain leader on the weapon of M-word splayed out, bold. They love that image. That's a weapon. And y'all unalived him. And you put it on your churches, you put it around your necks, you tattoo it on your bodies, you put it on your images, you put it on the back of your car. Is that not idolatry? And it's violent, gross idolatry nonetheless. But Christians feel like that idol is fine. But gonna tell me that protecting my third eye is wrong. Remember I said yesterday, everything that could actually help people, they preach heartily against. Don't cover your crown chakra and protect it. Don't protect your third eye. But it's perfectly fine for you to continue to reenact the blood ritual and binding spells of high witchcraft in the name of God. That part. So that's the basic of those are my two announcements for the day. I don't want to stay on that too long because I want to get to the good stuff. Like I said, I sat down this morning and I had in mind, and I probably will still get into it later because they're beautiful discussions. I'm actually going to link the first one here because I'm going to quote heavily from it. But I was sat down to do a discussion of Hellfire Dogma because it came to my attention. I was on one of my favorite content creators channels, and actually while we're doing information that might be useful, I'm going to name a few channels for you because like I said, I know my algorithm is different, and as many times as I've had real life face-to-face conversations with people, most of the people that I'm about to name, most people have never heard of or don't watch their content. So I'm going to help you so you can pause it, come back to it, rewind it, or whatever. And I didn't think about it and write them down, or I would have. I got several, but the ones that I want to call to mind now, I'm going to end up with the one that I want to discuss from today. But what's helped me so much in the past 2 or 3 years, there is Astral Legends TV, um, Anunnaki Ancient Mystery, Ancient Astronaut Archive, Myth Vision Podcast, MYTH Myth Vision Podcast, Next Level Soul. Let me see. Oh, of course, Billy Carson Official, and Forbidden Knowledge Network. He has two. The number 4, Forbidden Knowledge, and he also has Billy Carson Official. And Morgue Official, like going to the morgue. Yeah, that brother is awesome too. But like I said, leading up to my very favorite one that I'm going to discuss today, and I'm going to let you know why he's my favorite. I might actually even tag him in this video. I think one of his channels has like 1 million subscribers, so I'm not even sure you'll see it. But I love me some Paul Wallace, and I'm going to tell you why. Paul Wallace was as knee-deep into Christianity as a being can possibly get. 33 years as an archdeacon in the Anglican Church in Australia, teaching other priests, pastors, and all that how to handle their duties and all that. Like I said, serious biblical instructor. And then in his research, came onto the idea of this paleo contact within the Bible and actually followed the research and was honest enough and sincere enough as a person, as a being, as a lover of Yeshua, to actually connect the dots. And when he saw what he saw, he stepped away from the madness and began to teach. He's not afraid to speak, even though he gets quite a lot of hate for it. And I love him for that because he's helping others open their eyes. He helped me tremendously, because when I had like I said, a lot of the things that I saw back then, and I was wondering and questioning, can I say this? Can I say that? Is this really true? Am I hearing this correctly? Did I know and understand? And then I can go back, and he's putting down the research and showing you from the other publications and quoting these things. And he's a big enough name in the space that he can bring in other people like Mauro Bellino and Billy Carson and all them and have these conversations in a way with credible experts in the field so that we can get a clearer understanding. And so he did a video very recently. So thank you. If you do happen to see this, Mr. Wallace, thank you. Thank you. And truthfully, family, once we get through the Sitchin work, we will probably go into that. By then, we got 14 books in the Sitchin series, and I've already purchased them. So we're going to do that first, but hopefully by the fall of the year, we'll start to get into some of Paul Wallace's work because he's broken it down. He's got like the Eden Conspiracy and the Eden Enigma. He's got several books that discuss a lot of this stuff comparatively with the Anunnaki and the Anunnaki and the Sumerian and Babylonian text versus the biblical text. And like I said, he has that over 3 decades of experience within Christianity. So he's got a very well-rounded view of all of it. And I feel like that's like where we're really going to get the rounded conversations from. His channels are Paul Wallace, PaulWallis. He has a channel by his name, and then he also has The Fifth Kind. And both of those are excellent, excellent, excellent channels. If you're interested in expanding that, and like I said, when I discuss things off his channels, I always will link them in a pinned comment when my videos upload. But back to today's subject. I started out, he did a video recently titled, Is Hell Real? Or Is Hell For Real? And likewise, a few days, I don't know if it was before or after, which have you, Myth Vision podcast did an in-depth discussion of where the idea of hellfire dogma comes from. And we will discuss it further later on. But one of the things, the notes that and I mean, I understood, I did not grow up believing in hell at all because I was raised Jehovah's Witness, and they teach something completely different. Because truthfully, there is nothing in the Bible that genuinely supports the idea of hellfire. There just is not. You cannot prove hellfire dogma because it's not doctrine, it is dogma that was adopted. And truthfully, once you get into the Myth Vision podcast, they were talking about its Zoroastrian roots and things like that. But Paul Wallace was talking about how many researchers have come to the conclusion that, like Yeshua was talking about, ruin or regret or destruction, but destruction is not the same as hell. Ruin and regret is not the same as hell. And he quoted someone who wrote a book in 1988, John Stark. He wrote a book called Evangelical Essentials. And in that book, the man said that he had been so pilloried and vilified by evangelical believers around the world because he stated in that book that after years of research, he could not conclude that the Bible supports the teaching of hellfire, and he could no longer defend it. But later on, he got so much heat from the good Christian folk that he had to recant the idea that the hellfire dogma should be tested against the scriptures. Because that's all he was pushing for. He was like, you really want to teach this? Go and look at it against the Gospels and the New Testament and really look at whether or not you should be. And he got so much heat for it, he had to later on retract his statements. These people were pushing for the idea of being able to continue to promote the idea of a burning hell for eternal torment of whomever they judge is going in. Now, at that point, I'm trying to see. Yeah, I'm gonna just read what I wrote down here because a lot of this is an extended quote from him, and then we'll discuss it because he said something that hit my head in a way that was so profound. And then, of course, I had to sit and reflect on it and all the rest of that. But it summed it up in a way that I had never heard quite put that way before. But to me, it's the best that's ever been said. Now, he was saying, the zeal of these devout Christians, they would prefer to believe in the teaching of eternal torment. Well, that was not a quote. That's not a direct. Now, this is what I put. In the zeal of these devout Christians, they prefer to believe in the teaching of eternal torment than a more compassionate being who metes out justice fairly and commensurate with the actual offense. In other words, remember in the scriptures, the nation of Israel was confused as to what they were supposed to do, so they went and made a calf because they didn't even have the rule book of how they were supposed to worship Yahweh yet. They had just followed him out of Egypt because he said he was freeing them from slavery. And literally right there within the first 40 days of their conversion, he threatened to unalive them all because they dared to upset him. Not really, you gonna kill them all, an entire nation of people because they made you mad because you're a jealous God. That's not commensurate with the offense, especially when you didn't even tell them how you want them to worship. But because they broke your rules that you ain't even gave them yet, you were going to kill them all. And in order to avoid that, Joshua and Caleb literally had to unalive 3,000 men overnight. He gathered up those that was willing to help him do it, and they went through and unalived 3,000 of their own brothers, sisters, neighbors, whatever, overnight to appease Yahweh, to keep him from killing them all. This is the God they chose to serve. Now, he describes the emails and comments. He said he gets them at least weekly and sometimes daily. And these are all comments from devout believers because of what Paul Wallace teaches in the books that he's written, the channels that he has, uncovering these nuggets of truth based on years of actual research and comparing many different translations of different texts, biblical texts, as well as historical texts. He's not just out there just making up stuff off the top of his head. He's a serious researcher who's devoted his life to this work, and he gets emails almost daily from devout believers giving graphic threat. Now I'm quoting because I'm going to read this part. Let me just read it. From devout believers giving graphic threats and hopes of violence personally by God. And he said, this is what happens when we confuse the idea of God with that of a destroyer or a dragon or some other dark entity or some dark violent entity. It isn't pretty. It's only logical if in our imagination we worship a God who exacts violence and genocide. I don't even know if I can say that on here, but oops. If I didn't, I don't. Then in our minds, we have to justify violence and that G word and call it praiseworthy. If in our imagination we worship a God who divides humanity into righteous and unrighteous, then we have to judge people in the same way ourselves. If we worship a God who regards human beings differently according to ethnicity, whether they be my people or not my people, we will relate to humanity around us in exactly the same xenophobic way and consider our racism as righteous. Put simply, worshiping a monster makes monsters out of us. That's the part that got my attention. Worshiping a monster makes monsters out of us, because one of the first things they put into us in programming right in Genesis is let us make man in our image. We are so sold on the idea that we're made in God's image. And then that first 5 books of the Bible gives you all of these stories of unfairness, misogyny, chauvinistic behavior, sometimes downright rape and plunder, and M-word, unaliving people, fighting wars, all of that with the sanction, direct order from God. So if God orders it, it's okay. And because we've been told that we're made in his image, if he can do it, we can do it too. So he don't have a problem with enslaving people. Therefore, we don't have a problem with enslaving people. He don't have a problem with unaliving people. We don't have a problem with unaliving people. He don't have a problem with raping people. We don't have a problem with raping people. And they convince themselves that it's okay because they do not understand and accept the fact that the God that they've been put before them is Satan, the devil. They tell you that in Genesis, but people don't want to hear it because they flipped the story and told you Satan was something else outside of Yahweh. But Satan is Yahweh. If you look a little bit further, then, like I said, look at the older texts that the Bible came from. You have to understand the Bible is not it's the youngest one of most of these documents. It was culled and pulled together from stories from older texts, and the older texts tell us that Yahweh was Satan of Eden. Yahweh is also Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, a dragon, a destroyer, a manslayer. It tells you in the Bible he's a murderer and a manslayer. or a liar. I think the word devil means liar and one means manslayer or what. And they tell you over and over in the Bible, he's a devil, he's a liar and a manslayer, a liar and a manslayer. They just don't tell you that he's also Yahweh. Now to continue this quote, he said, put simply, worshiping a monster makes monsters out of us. The history of invasions, colonizations, executions, witch hunts, persecutions, slavery, Jim Crow, and law enforcement lynchings, all done in the name of God, all done in the name of God, is more than enough evidence to confirm to confirm the very ramifications of worshiping a violent and xenophobic deity. There's a tragic inevitability to it, that if we confuse brutal colonizations with the actions of God, then we will become brutal colonizers ourselves in the name of God. This is why it's crucial or critical that we not continue to translate the stories of the destroyer as if they're stories of God. We accept that the Bible is the all-inspired word of God, beneficial for proving and teaching, because that's the people that invented the Christian religion told us that. But it's not the story of God, it's the story of Enlil, Lord of the Command, the destroyer. And because it does mention Elohim, more than one Elohim, there are some points of lovely poetry and lovely whatever, and some moments of compassion in there. But please understand, Elohim means more than one. Because they generalized it and genericized it, we don't even understand that the more compassionate references in those scriptures are not referring to Yahweh. It's referring to some of the other Elohim. Like in Revelation when it tells you that Elohim is going to descend with New Jerusalem, and he's coming to take care of all the ones that survive Armageddon, and he's instituting a new earth, and there's going to be peace, and people are going to have health and prosperity and long life. Do you really think that's the one that led everybody lost for the last 10,000 years? All of a sudden he had a change of mind and a lobotomy or something and got good overnight. No, that's a different Elohim. And people don't see that, or not willing to accept it, because they are so brainwashed and so readily willing to accept that all of the violence, murder, and mayhem that we've been spoon-fed for hundreds of years through biblical stories of that's who God is, and that's just, and that's right. And it is okay that our lives are shit while we're here on this planet. It ain't gonna get good until or unless you're good enough to appease him in this life. If you just toe the line long enough, never mind if you suffer here. You're supposed to suffer here. This is your trial here. You can suffer here. And as long as you're willing to suffer here, you'll get your reward on the other side. Really? And we've been willing to accept that. Billions of people are willing to accept that hook, line, and sinker through 3 different religions all over the planet for thousands of years. People, we have to wake up. We gotta. As human beings, if any of us treat our fellow man the way God has treated his people throughout time, we will be considered monsters. Look at Genghis Khan. Look at Hitler. Look at Stalin. Look at Shaka Zulu. Any of them people, they wasn't a pimple on our God's behind, and they were considered monsters. But you worship a monster and will unalive and fight and cuss out and curse and literally wish death upon anybody that dares to oppose your beautiful monster that you worship. It reminded me, when I was listening to this stuff, it really took me back to the recent elections we had here. It shocked and hurt me to my core that after the election, People were literally sobbing. They've been so brainwashed and blinded and so busy frothing at the mouth to march themselves to their own demise that they were literally out there crying in the streets because the election went the way that it went. And when assassination attempts were made on our president's life, these people were out there literally clapping and cheering and upset because it wasn't successful. But you call yourselves good Christian and God, and God you trust slapped on your money, and you sit here and wish death on a person that's actually trying to help you? Make it make sense, people. They don't understand. They cannot see how we've been brainwashed with truly malicious intent. And it's absolutely malicious. And meanwhile, all the people that have put those things into place with malicious intent, the major religious organizations, the major political groups, because they'll tell you Caesar's things. Well, no, Yeshua said Caesar's things to Caesar and God's things to God. They're not supposed to mix. But that's why in the scriptures, Babylon the Great is called the great harlot, because religion and politics have been real nasty bedfellows ever since, all the way down the line. And people are so blind to it, just can't see it. But anyway, let me finish this quote. It said, that's why we should in no way allow ourselves to confuse a dragon story with a God story. However, merely making the case for that with my books and videos has been sufficient for Christians, for beloved Christians, or Christian believers, around the world to be believing that they are okay. It's sufficient for Christian believers around the world to be believing that they are thinking in a godly way and doing a service when they threaten me with the Almighty's eternal fiery judgment. Of course, they insist that they're not threatening me. No, they'll leave that to the destroyer. Good for them. And if you don't believe that's so, go look on any comment thread, on any video or short reel from those Christian apologist groups, or better yet, go to a Paul Wallace video or a Billy Carson video, or recently they had a huge thing when Billy Carson and Wes Huff had a debate. Wes Huff is supposed to be some big Christian apologist, and the people in the comment sections are so violent. But every one of the ones that was violent and saying horrible things, oh yeah, those are Christians. They don't have no problem with calling death down on somebody and piously say that, well, it's not me judging, God gonna judge you. How you know what God gonna judge? Because you sit there in your righteous judgment, not you, I'm saying, but they sit there in their righteous judgmental selves and have decided everything that they don't like, that surely God is going to punish you for it. They will cast somebody in the pits of hell in a minute and feel completely justified at night doing it. That's why the priests and the preachers and the popes and everybody else line up to bless the ships and the weapons and the guns and stuff when they go out to war. How in the world? How in the world can any religious leader bless weapons of war? People think, and any religious leader that's willing to do that is bowing to the dragon. But they all are. That's the game that they don't tell you. It's a shell game, but the shell game is rigged. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all worship Yahweh, Allah, Jehovah, which is the same being, which is also Enlil, Satan, Yaldabaoth, Demiurge. Lots of different names, one very evil individual that is not God Almighty. He's a destroyer. He is a dragon from another world that has had mankind in a spell of deception, leading them lost for thousands and thousands of years. So much so that even in the ancient prophecies, it is said, now, we done already went through the lost book of Enki. We're doing the Enuma Elish right now. We can see in the Babylonian prophecies or Babylonian tales, they were super bloodthirsty. Oh my God. I thought the Enuma Elish, they got down like some nonsense. Oh, no, no, no. The Babylonians, they didn't have no problem with parents unaliving their children and children turning back and unaliving their mother and this one and that one. And all, oh, it's nasty. Terrible stuff. But even in the Anak stories, they were so sick and tired of Enlil and Marduk that spilled over into the biblical, that Revelation story. Yahweh is going to be destroyed by his own folks because humans can't do it. But they so sick of his mess that he's got to go. That's the story we're really reading. We've been given the Bible as the be all end all guidebook for mankind. And yes, there's some good stuff in it. But the overall story of that book is a story of sovereignty between two brothers, one of whom wanted all the worship and devotion on the planet for people, but didn't really see people as people, saw us as slaves to be used and disposed like garbage when he was done with us. And the other brother is more compassionate, the one that actually created us. Once he gave us his DNA, he began to see us more as his children, or like have a moral responsibility and obligation towards us, and has always been the more compassionate of the two brothers, even when he was dealing with his own people on Nibiru. That's the actual story of the Bible. All that other stuff with the these and thous and thems and all of that, and the without shout nots that they're laying down for us, those were the guidebook rules that Yahweh kept giving his people, that if they didn't toe the line just so, that he was going to rain down fire on them. But here's the thing, Yahweh never fulfilled his promise to them, no way. And we're still sitting here on the other side of that 10,000 years later, waiting for Yahweh to fulfill promises that he never fulfilled with none of them people. And they told you that in Hebrews 11:40. And under Luciferian law, once they hide the truth in plain sight and give it to you, they have no further obligation or worry about karma hitting them. They don't care nothing about no karma. That's something else that we worry about because they told us we need to worry about it. We've really got to wake up and understand that we've been completely bamboozled and hoodwinked, people. But anyway, that's my little rant for today. That whole statement when he said that if we worship a God who regards human beings differently according to ethnicity, whether they be my people or not my people, we'll relate to humanity around us in exactly the same xenophobic way and consider our racism as righteous. Put simply, worshiping a monster makes monsters out of us. Brother Wallace, yes. And we need to truly understand that that is why we live in the hell and confusion we live in, because we've been worshiping a monster who's taught us, we made in his image, and he's taught us how to behave like he behaves, like they behaved on Nibiru. But if we truly call ourselves intelligent, we can stop that. But we have to be willing to accept it and step out from under the brainwashing. I know, and I get it. It's not gonna be easy. I understand that. When I stepped away from religion, even my son was like, "Well, Mom, what if we don't get it right? What if we get it wrong?" Guess what? If you don't believe nothing else in that Bible, the Quran or Torah, or whatever it is you got to look at, if you don't believe nothing else, cling to the notion that the God you should be worshiping is love. And then go and examine the nature of the God you actually worshiping, as opposed to the one they tell you you're supposed to be worshiping. There's nothing loving about Yahweh or Allah. or Jehovah, whatever name you want to give him. Even when you get some of the other ones, when he was Zeus, he wasn't loving. When he was Odin, he wasn't loving. When he was Dionysus, he was not loving. When he was Bacchus, he was not loving. When he was Yao, he was not loving. No matter what name he's worn throughout all time of recorded human history, in any mythology he's ever been a part of, he has not been loving. He is not the God we are supposed to be worshiping. And truthfully, according to the one who actually made us, not the one who came and stole credit for it in order to intimidate us, according to the one who actually made us, we ain't supposed to worship none of them. We're supposed to respect them and cooperate with them, but we're not supposed to worship any of them. That worship thing was something that Yahweh insisted on so that he could perpetuate that lie and sit on his behind and have humans slave for him and bring him his offerings and bring him his money and bring him his food, because that's what he wanted to do. It's a tool. Are we going to stay ignorant and caught up in that? Or are we going to escape the madness? Whew, I ain't mean to preach or go on, but I get a little worked up about it just because this is so, it bothers me because I know that humanity at large are sincere. My tone and agitation that I get is not for my individual fellow human beings. It's for the clowns that set all of this stuff up in motion, and for the hierarchy, because trust and believe the political leaders, the religious leaders, what we call the hierarchy, the archons, oh, they absolutely know what time it is. And they have been playing this shell game for long, and trying to make sure we never learn the truth. But we in the age of the information age, baby, the age of Aquarius. You can't keep us ignorant and downtrodden with your neck on our foot on our neck forever. We just ain't gonna do that no more, right? That's what I'm here for. I'm sounding the alarm because Yeshua told me to speak what he was speaking. And this is what Yeshua came here to tell people, to liberate people with the truth. They didn't like it. They unalived him for it. But he said he was going to come back and Holy Spirit will be a helper. And those that are receiving Holy Spirit are beginning to speak it out. Brother Wallace is speaking it out. Brother Carson is speaking it out. Brother Morg is speaking it out. Different ones are beginning to speak it out. And cry. We don't have no choice. We got to. So those who choose to join me and tune in, they gonna hear me speak it out quite a bit too, because it's a fire in my belly now. I had no idea that it was gonna become all of this. I thought I was, I didn't want to be in the public eye. Then I came to understand I was going to read tarot. Okay, Spirit, I got you. I can read tarot, no problem. Oh, no, no, no. But you going to also teach this. Like, really? I got to get all the way out there on a limb. But now that I find it consumes my thoughts so much, and I'm led to so much information, I can't not speak on it. So, yeah, you hang with me, you're going to hear a little bit of it. And I'm hoping that you'll share it with those who need to hear it too, because I know it's going to make a lot of folks mad, but it's also going to help a lot of folks be able to free themselves. And the old heads may not ever get it. Some of them will never wake up. They're going to leave right up off of this planet, clinging to their Bibles and clutching their rosaries and kneeling on their prayer mats and facing Mecca and all of that stuff. Got the yarmulkes all together, all of that. They're going to continue to do it, and they are more than willing to die for the belief to continue following that dragon right down into the pit. Let them. What we're speaking out about is to help those that are willing to wake up, because the scriptures clearly tell us the majority of them won't get it. The remnants is what we're trying to find. The chosen ones. The ones that are able to turn off their worship gene and find salvation and understand that it doesn't come through the means in which they've been told. It comes in being willing to understand and do something different, and truly picking up our cot and following Yeshua. Not following the Christian church, because there ain't nothing Christ-like in Christianity at all. But Yeshua laid down certain things that we were supposed to do, and if we truly follow Yeshua, we'll be all right. That's it, family. I'm going to get on here and got some other work coming. I do love you. Peace and blessings to you. Namaste.